Is it okay to help someone cross the river Styx if you know they're doing something bad? Can it be justified if you believe you're doing it for a good cause? Well, that's the situation Yu Kitataka, also known as Jin Kuwana, found himself in during the game Lost Judgement. He did away with multiple former school students that he caught bullying others, leading to extreme physical damage or worse. But a compelling question came out of this when players finished the game. Was Kuwana right? Was he justified in doing what he did to these bullies? Well, to talk about this, I'm going to explain what he did, who it affected, and whether I agreed with his methods or not. In 2008, Yu Kitataka, a teacher with Kurokawa Academy, was informed by his student, Yoko Sawa, that her classmate, Mitsuru Kusumoto, was being bullied by his classmates. At first, he didn't really take this warning seriously, telling them, don't overdo it. But after Sawa pointed out that he wasn't paying attention to the situation, he decided to secretly record the bullying. Unfortunately, it was too little, too late, because by the time he watched the recording, Mitsuru had already jumped off the roof of the school, putting himself into a coma. Kitatsuka soon found out the main culprit for the bullying was Shinya Kawai, and they both took the blame for Kusumoto's injuries, but it didn't matter. Kawai was never properly punished, and Kitatsuka was disgraced and fired, forced to go into hiding. This is when he became Jin Kuwana. Years later, he re-emerged with a plan to take revenge on the now adult bullies. His plan was simple. Ask the parents of the bullied victims if they wanted to punish the bully that harmed their children. If they said yes, he would force his former students, who were also to blame for what happened to Mitsuru, to kidnap the target and allow the parents to erase the bully from existence. It was never explained what happened to the bullies if the parents said no, but I'm assuming since his goal was to make them suffer, he would have ended them anyways. It was stated that he eliminated at least 7 bullies, but only 2 parents were mentioned to be involved. Moving on, Kawai was the very first victim. Kuwana reached out to Mitsuru's mother, Reiko Kusumoto, first to see if she wanted revenge. Before deciding, she wanted to see Kawai in person down in Kamurocho. I assume to see if he really felt bad about what happened to her son, since he was crying in court. But to her disappointment, he didn't even remember who she was. So, after a disrespectful encounter, she contacted Kuwana to set up the ceremony. Kuwana, having had the former students and Reiko be the only ones to touch Kawai, decided to freeze the body. This was the blackmail material that he used to keep his former students under his thumb. In 2018, Toshiro Ihara was bullied by Hiro Makoshiba, which led to his eventual self-deletion. When his father Akihiro Ihara failed to sue the school for his son's death, Kuwana came to him with the same offer he gave Reiko, a chance to rid the world of Makoshiba. Ihara agreed, and soon Makoshiba was captured and had his subscription to life cancelled. Now, I'm guessing due to the fact that Mitsuru did not suffer the same fate as Toshiro, there was no need for the police to be looking at Reiko when Kawai disappeared. But Ihara was not so lucky. Makoshiba's death would have raised many red flags after his dismissed lawsuit against the school, so he and Kuwana faked a sexual assault crime to give himself an alibi after he deleted Makoshiba. This is when the game's protagonist Takayuki Yagami gets involved, as he was hired to help out with the bullying case, which evolved into an investigation about the disappearance of Makoshiba. As he investigates the case, he unravels the entire conspiracy involving Kuwana, Reiko, Ihara, and the criminal organization Red Knife, also known as RK, who also became involved in this ordeal because they were searching for Kawai for their own reasons. They soon learned about Kuwana's involvement with Kawai and needed to capture him to get what they wanted. This entire conspiracy affects a lot of people, and not in a good way. Kuwana was blackmailing his former students into kidnapping bullies. They were associates of Kawai that he caught on camera bullying Mitsuru, so he held them responsible as well. On top of that, one of his students, Yui Mayami, was forced to pretend to be a sexual assault victim when he helped Ihara create his alibi. The 2 parents that got involved risked their careers just to get revenge, and even though they made their own choices to do so, it was thanks to Kuwana's plan that they got tangled up in this. While Reiko did it for her own selfish reasons, Ihara's goal was to show how bad the justice system was by allowing him to dodge the consequences for what he did to Makoshiba. And of course, Yagami was also involved because he's the main character and he was also hired to deal with these cases. This led to Kuwana putting his life in danger multiple times. But those were just the immediate people affected by what he was doing. There were also consequences for people that weren't that close to the conspiracy. He secretly contracted the Yokohama Lumang organization to interfere with Yagami's investigation. This ended up putting the detective in direct conflict with the group and eventually forced the Lumang to butt heads with RK after they joined forces with Yagami. The Yokohama 99 detectives Fuyama Segura and Makoto Tsukumo were assaulted by Kuwana students to also deter Yagami from the investigation. And the person that suffered the most, even though they weren't directly involved in the conspiracy, was former student, now former teacher, Yoko Sawa, who was taken to the other world by RK in their attempt to get to Kuwana. She had no real involvement in the conspiracy, even though thanks to Yagami, she was slowly putting the pieces together. Sawa is a heavily memed character in the small parts of the fandom because Yagami, after she was removed from the plot, always brought her up during arguments with Kuwana about what he was doing, and I'll get to that in a moment. But first, I wanted to share my position on the matter. Now, Kuwana's goal was not only to give parents a chance at revenge, but he also wanted to fix the mistakes he made when he was told about Mitsuru's bullying problem. He was slow to act, and that cost his student many years of their life. But this is where his ambitions end, revenge and atonement. Despite what he's told Yagami, he's not putting any effort into doing anything to try to make things better. He's just erasing people because he feels guilty. At least Ihara wanted to try to expose how flawed and easily fooled the justice system is. Kuwana only helped because it was a part of the plan. He likely agreed with Ihara, but he didn't even try to expose it. I believe he was too focused on his own street justice. So, in the end, do I agree with him? Was what he was doing the right thing to do? At the end of the day, no, I don't think it was. I do believe the bullies that he put in a forever box needed to be punished. I myself was a victim of bullies when I was in school, so I am a bit biased. While I never considered deleting myself, I understand the emotional damage that can happen to people that are bullied. It's easy to side with Kuwana because it feels right on the surface level. He believed that these bullies needed to be punished after the justice system failed their victims. I support that. However, what he was doing really didn't help change anything. If he was working towards helping schools end bullying, then I can get behind him. That's what Sugiura and Tsukumo were doing, working to find ways to catch bullies in the act and deal with them accordingly. And their strategy worked. With the help of Yagami, they turned yesterday's bullies into today's defenders. Kuwana, he was just hurting people. Nothing he's doing is helping to prevent bullying in the future. He's done everything in secret, so it's not like other bullies were going to be getting the message. He could have easily put on a mask and released a snuff video putting school bullies on notice that once they grew up, they would be punished for their crimes. Then there was the fact that he was involving innocent people. Without his involvement, Reiko likely wouldn't have risked her career to get revenge. Ihara wouldn't have planned a fake crime to hide his real crime, although I still think if he didn't do this, he would have done something else. While the Lu Mang isn't really an innocent organization, without Kuwana contacting them, they wouldn't have gotten wrapped up in the conspiracy. And Yoko Sawa, the most innocent person in this story, would still be alive were it not for Kuwana's schemes. This is the most important reason why I don't agree with Kuwana. Sawa was murdered simply because she was associated with Kuwana and was figuring out the conspiracy. It's sad because she didn't really have any ulterior motives other than protecting her students and making sure nobody else went through what her classmate Mitsuru did. When RK got to her, Kuwana either tried to justify it or made it seem like she was just a casualty of war. Which is very easy to say for the puppet master, but try telling that to everyone else that's involved. She was an innocent schoolteacher that paid the ultimate price just because he felt guilty for not doing his job when she warned him about what was happening to one of his students. I mentioned this earlier, but a few people like to joke about how Yagami's only argument when confronting Kuwana is Sawa. What about Sawa, he asks. Well, that's the only thing Yagami needs to ask. He's forcing Kuwana to face the fact that in his attempts to balance the scale of justice, he's not only hurting the people that deserve it, but he's also hurting people that don't deserve it. What people fail to understand is that the reason Yagami constantly brings up her death is because everyone involved in Kuwana's plan tried to act like her death was a necessary evil or just ignore it altogether. And if you know who Yagami is, you know that he values the truth over everything. It was the driving force behind this case involving Shinpei Okubo and Emi Torosara. He believes that the truth matters the most no matter the cost and doesn't want Sawa's death to be meaningless. The intelligence agency Public Safety, a group that I forgot to mention, was also involved in this and would have gladly pinned her death on Kuwana and buried them both. Yagami doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want the people involved to forget the price Sawa had to pay. Now, to be fair, the developers could have found different ways for Yagami to express this when talking about Sawa, and that may have silenced some of the memes that came from him constantly bringing her up, but I don't think it would have made a difference in the fandom. As I said, what Kuwana was doing was not only hurting the bullies, but it was hurting innocent people, and he, along with the two other parents that were involved, act like their actions didn't have any effect on Sawa's life. Ihara basically said this when Yagami talked to him about Sawa. Everyone involved is trying very hard to distance themselves from Sawa's murder, except for Soma, who's almost proud of it. But Yagami is not going to allow anyone to hide from the truth. What's crazy is Yagami doesn't completely disagree with their motivations. He agrees that the justice system is imperfect. He knows that better than anyone. He also understands why what Kuwana did morally may be right, but believes it's not the way to go about it since Sawa suffered because of it. Sure, he's removed 7 bullies off the board years after they committed their crimes. And sure, most probably didn't grow up to be great people. Kawaii appeared to still be a jerk, and Mikoshiba continued to bully people in school as a student teacher, so maybe they had it coming. But what does any of this do for students in the country that are currently being bullied? Is his idea to wait till a bully harms someone, then wait some more until they are old enough to send them to oblivion? Or is he really just trying to fix a mistake he made over a decade ago? And don't get me wrong, Kuwana, despite being the antagonist of the game, is not an evil person. He's more like an anti-villain. He genuinely believes what he's doing is the right thing to do when the system fails. He's not sending these bullies to the Shadow Realm just to satisfy his own twisted fantasy. He's doing it because, at his core, he's a protector. Most people who choose to be teachers are protectors. While it didn't really sound that way at the start with the "don't overdo it" line, he really does care about his students. When it was made known that the bullying material was going through was a lot more serious than he initially thought, the first thing he did was try to find the culprits. He planted a camera inside the classroom to figure out who was behind it. Unfortunately, he was too late. Maybe if he had listened to Sawa sooner, he might have been able to save Mitsuru. But despite that, he still made an effort to make sure Kawaii paid for his actions. Too bad the legal system wasn't on his side, because Kawaii didn't have to answer for what he did. Kuwana failed Mitsuru twice, but he would get a third opportunity to protect him. As the game progressed, I started to notice that Kuwana did a lot to help and protect Reiko. At first, I thought he was trauma bonded to her and felt like he had to do whatever he could, since he couldn't do anything for Mitsuru. But this doesn't make sense because he didn't do that for Hihara. Hell, as soon as he realized the game was over, he gave up Hihara to Yagami. So why did he do so much for Reiko? I think it's because he felt guilty for his negligence and failure to protect her son. He feels like he owes her for the pain and suffering she had to endure after Mitsuru jumped off that roof. I was shocked when he doubled down after Reiko betrayed him, but then I realized he did it to protect Mitsuru after he woke up. He saw this as his last chance to protect his student. He didn't want him to be known as the son of a murderer, something that would have subjected Mitsuru to possibly being bullied by the rest of the world. After failing twice, he finally saw an opportunity to protect his student from harm, and I can't fault him for that. He only wants the best for the people who had to suffer at the hands of bullies. I just think he went about it the wrong way. Instead of getting revenge for past victims, he should have been working towards protecting current victims. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think what Kuwana was doing was right? It certainly feels that way, but once you really think about it, was it worth it? Leave your comments down below, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you want to see more from me, and I will see you guys in the next one.